Hook and structural promise. Imagine going through years of pure hell, ritual combat, genetic surgery, 19 separate implants installed without anesthesia, having your nervous system rewired to interface with power armor, your body rebuilt from the inside out, only to die from interdimensional space aids on your very first deployment against Plague Marines. That is Tuesday in the 41st millennium. Most lore breakdowns of the Space Marine hierarchy skip the same floors every time. Sergeant variants, the complete Chaplain sub-rank ladder, the 4-tier Librarian hierarchy, the Honor Guard, the full Primaris integration. Today we cover all of it. Every rank from Terrified Child to Chapter Master, every specialist track running parallel to the command chain, and at every single tier, exactly how a Space Marine can still die once they get there. Tier 1, Aspirant. It starts with children. Chapters recruit from the worlds under their protection, death worlds, frontier settlements, warrior cultures that have spent generations being hardened by environments hostile to human survival. The optimal age for recruitment is between 10 and 12 years old. Some chapters take candidates as young as 7. A functional upper ceiling sits around 16 because adult recruits face significantly higher failure rates during gene seed integration. Younger bodies accept the surgeries more readily. Most chapters won't take anyone older than their early teens. Aspirants have no formal chapter membership. They're candidates, selected on physical capability, psychological resilience, and a demonstrated capacity for aggression and endurance, then subjected to extended trials that filter the field before any biological work begins. Physical extremity, psychological testing, ritual combat, survival challenges calibrated to whatever the homeworld uses as a threat baseline. Children from Fenris face the beasts of a world locked in perpetual winter and tectonic violence. Children from Nocturne face a volcanic supercontinent that periodically tries to kill everything on it. The trials mirror the environments that produce the recruits. Many die at this stage, without the gene seed ever being introduced. Aspirants who fail the trials but survive are folded into the chapter as human serfs, servants and administrators for the fortress monastery, spending their lives adjacent to the warriors they almost became. Those who pass the trials but whose bodies subsequently reject the gene seed implants face a worse outcome. In some accounts, they become servitors, lobotomized cyborg laborers, permanently integrated into the machinery they once trained to operate. The Imperium does not waste viable biological material. It repurposes it. Community estimates put the aspirant to battle brother survival rate somewhere between 1 and 5%, varying considerably by chapter. Some select carefully from a small elite pool. Others process hundreds and accept whoever completes the transformation. The math lands somewhere in the vicinity of dozens of children dying or failing for every Marine a chapter produces. At aspirant tier, Nurgle's rot isn't your problem. Your problem is the environment, the other candidates, and the basic biological lottery of whether your body will be compatible with what's about to be done to it. Tier 2, Neophyte/Scout Marine. Survive the trials, and the biological reconstruction begins. 19 gene seed organ implants are required to produce a full Space Marine. They are installed in sequence, because each one prepares the body for the next, over a process that spans years at minimum and can extend across decades in chapters that take it slowly. The black carapace is the 19th and last. It's installed subdermally across the torso and integrates the Marine's nervous system directly with power armor. Without it, power armor functions as a suit. With it, power armor functions as a second body. The entire sequence is performed without anesthesia. Before this process is complete, chapters deploy their neophytes into combat. A neophyte in scout deployment is larger and stronger than any ordinary human soldier, and still biologically unfinished. Gene seed is still being accepted. Individual implants may not have fully integrated. The black carapace hasn't been installed yet. They carry lighter equipment, operate in scout squads in the 10th Company, gather intelligence, and eliminate high-value targets from range. They die at a rate that reflects how incomplete they still are. Something most coverage gets wrong about this stage. The chapter doesn't erase the Neophyte's cultural identity. Several major chapters don't erase it at any stage. Lehman Russ structured the entire Space Wolves chapter around Fenrisian tribal culture from the founding. The pack mentality, the warrior saga oral tradition, the reverence for battle born from a world of perpetual ice and predators the size of tanks. A Space Wolf Neophyte, called a Bloodclaw in chapter terminology, is a Fenrisian warrior being made into something larger, not a blank slate being overwritten. The Space Wolves are notorious throughout the Imperium for their defiance of codex structure, and their cultural retention is part of what that defiance looks like at the most fundamental level. Salamanders recruit from Nocturne and carry its values forward explicitly. Their Promethean cult centers on protection of the innocent and the worth of the community you're defending. It isn't uncommon for a salamander to live among the Nocturnian population in chapter bastions built within their settlements, maintaining active bonds with the civilians of their homeworld in a way unusual for any Astartes chapter. That isn't residual sentiment from before the transformation. That is doctrine. White Scars carry the steppe cavalry culture of Chagoris through every tier of their structure. Jagatai Khan built the chapter around the speed and independence of mounted nomad warriors, and his genetic legacy reinforces exactly those qualities in every Marine who bears his gene seed. Their honor guard equivalent, the Brotherhood of the Keshig, draws directly on the historical tradition of the Mongol Imperial Bodyguard, adapted to a chapter that storms continents on bikes. The culture-erased framing is demonstrably wrong for at least these 3 chapters, and arguably wrong for every chapter whose Primarch built the institution around a specific cultural foundation. Death at this tier. First scout missions, incomplete gene seed, in conditions calibrated for finished battle brothers. One rejection episode at the wrong moment and you die having almost become what you started trying to be. Tier 3, Battle Brother. All 19 implants complete. The black carapace installed. The chapter formally accepting you as a full Astartes. Power armor. Bolter. Everything. Tactical Marine, Assault Marine, and Devastator Marine aren't ranks. They are squad role assignments. A Battle Brother typically rotates through the assault role first, close-range engagement, jump pack operations, then moves to Devastator squads handling the company's heavy weapons, then eventually to the tactical role, which reflects the broadest operational competence. The rotation represents breadth of experience, not sequential promotion. A Devastator Marine and an Assault Marine in the same company hold the same rank. Treating these roles as ascending tiers produces an inaccurate map of how the company actually functions, and most lore hierarchies make exactly this error. Full Battle Brothers are assigned to the numbered companies, 2nd through 9th in a standard Codex-compliant chapter. Space Wolves call their Battle Brothers Grey Hunters. Blood Angels maintain standard Battle Brothers across their companies. Veterans, Marines whose distinction in combat has earned formal recognition, occupy an honored status within this tier. Access to more advanced war gear, greater informal authority, potential assignment to the first company. Whether this constitutes a distinct formal rank or an honorary designation that acknowledges longevity and excellence varies by chapter. The practical distinction is real. The chain of command position remains contested. The Nurgle beat at Battle Brother tier is the opening beat of the whole joke. Embedded in your body, the oolytic kidney and the Laraman's organ process toxins and manage tissue damage with extraordinary biological efficiency. You are immune to almost every pathogen humanity has cataloged. Nurgle's rot operates simultaneously as a physiological affliction and a warp-based corruption, running in a metaphysical register that neither of those organs was designed to address. The Emperor, in recorded lore, stated that his Space Marines would be untouched by plague or disease. That statement predates Nurgle taking a specific and permanent interest in former Space Marines as his most devoted servants. The first formal leadership promotion in the Space Marine hierarchy. A sergeant commands a squad of up to 10 Marines and sits one step below the lieutenant in the Codex chain. Chapter Master to Captain to Lieutenant to Sergeant to Squad. Three variants carry distinct canonical identities. The squad sergeant is the standard version, identifiable by the red helmet in most codex-compliant color schemes. First formal leadership appointment, commands a squad, responsible for keeping 10 of the most capable soldiers in the Imperium alive and functional in whatever environment they're currently being deployed into. The veteran sergeant is distinct, drawn from the veteran pool. These sergeants carry access to advanced-grade war gear and the weight of extended experience that affects command dynamics beyond what their formal authority alone would suggest. A veteran sergeant seconded to a company squad doesn't merely lead it, he reshapes its institutional competence. His rank is formally identical to a squad sergeant's. His influence isn't. The scout sergeant leads neophyte squads in the 10th Company, the same formal grade as any other sergeant, but commanding soldiers who haven't finished becoming soldiers yet. The tactical calculus is different. You're simultaneously running field operations and managing the biological and psychological instability of Marines still mid-transformation. The Space Wolves don't use the sergeant title at all. Wolf Guard take leadership roles based on the pack's accumulated respect for individual combat records, rather than formal appointment. Pack leaders function informally below that. The authority is real. The structure bypasses the Codex framework entirely. Whether sergeant is a permanent rank or a revocable appointment, sits unresolved broadly in the lore. The Codex Astartes implies formal permanence. Some chapters treat it as more fluid. The practical distinction matters less than the fact that this is the first rank where your decisions determine whether other people live or die, rather than just whether you do. Deathbeat. You've survived the trials, the transformation, scout deployment, and years of Battle Brother service. Somewhere on an active front, a Plague Marine with 3 millennia of personal combat experience and a body that can't feel pain is walking slowly toward your position, leaking contagion from every joint in its corroded power armor. Tier 5. Lieutenant. 2 lieutenants per company. Each commands a demi-company, roughly half the company's operational strength. The chain runs captain to lieutenant to sergeant. The lieutenant exists so that when a captain is managing an engagement at the strategic level, someone with actual command authority is handling tactical execution on one flank while the captain manages the other. The rank has a contested history. It appears in the Space Marine legions during the Great Crusade and carries clear grounding in Horus Heresy-era lore. It was largely absent from formalized company structures across several subsequent Codex editions, then reintroduced as a standard company officer with 8th edition, the Dark Imperium starter set launched with 2 Primaris lieutenants explicitly packaged within it. Whether this represents recovery of a dormant rank or an effective structural addition is genuinely unresolved. The functional result is identical either way. A mid-level company officer filling the command gap between captain and sergeant. The death beat requires no elaboration. Lieutenants operate at the front of tactical engagements by definition. The rank that puts you closest to the enemy on your company's active front doesn't come with a damage exemption. The specialist tracks. The Space Marine hierarchy runs 2 parallel personnel systems simultaneously, and conflating them is where most rank hierarchies collapse structurally. The combat chain ascends linearly. Battle Brother, Sergeant, Lieutenant, Captain, Chapter Master. Alongside it, in parallel tracks existing entirely outside that chain of command, sit 4 specialist roles: the Apothecary, the Tech Marine, the Chaplain, and the Librarian. The Codex Astartes lists all 4 as staff officers. In battle, the captain commands, not the chaplain, not the chief librarian, regardless of how those individuals rank within their own tracks. The specialist chain and the combat chain run in parallel. Treating them as rungs on the same ladder produces a map that doesn't reflect how the chapter actually functions. The Apothecary covers battlefield medicine and, critically, gene seed recovery from fallen Marines. Recovering gene seed from a battlefield isn't a courtesy. It's the mechanism by which the chapter produces its next generation of warriors. An apothecary who recovers gene seed from an engagement is doing more for the chapter's long-term survival than most things a combat marine can accomplish in the same time frame. The Primaris equivalent is the apothecary biologist. The tech marine maintains all vehicles, weapons, and war machines trained on Mars by the Adeptus Mechanicus, a relationship that creates a documented divided loyalty between chapter and Mechanicus. Both institutions are aware of this. The Space Wolves call their equivalent Iron Priests. The Chaplain and Librarian tracks each carry internal hierarchies that deserve proper treatment separately. A Marine is selected for the chaplaincy from the existing chapter ranks. He has served as a battle brother first, earned distinction in combat, and then been identified as a candidate. He serves as a novice under the company chaplain, learning the chapter cult, the specific religious and warrior belief system unique to each chapter, while continuing combat obligations. Selected novices then undergo a period of isolation in the fortress monastery, fasting, meditation, and preparation lasting up to 1 solar week. The formal investiture follows, performed by both the Reclusiarch and the Master of Sanctity, conducted in front of the entire assembled chapter. The new chaplain takes the name of his predecessor. The identity is institutional, not personal. The emergency succession rule is worth stating precisely. If a company's chaplain dies in battle before a novice's formal investiture can occur, the senior novice immediately puts on the deceased chaplain's war gear, skull-faced helm included, and assumes full chaplain authority on the spot. The formal ceremony happens after the battle. The mask is the office. Authority transfers through a piece of equipment in the middle of an active engagement. A second pathway coexists with this one in current lore. The Justiciar, a warrior judge who takes a vow of silence as preparation, represents a Primaris-era entry route into the chaplaincy. Both paths appear to be operational simultaneously rather than one having replaced the other. The chaplain's sub-rank ladder ascends through Justiciar, Chaplain, Reclusiarch, and Master of Sanctity. The Reclusiarch's primary function is training new chaplains and administering the operational chaplaincy. Above the Reclusiarch sits the Master of Sanctity, the chapter's spiritual head, whose institutional authority is subordinate only to the chapter master himself. Some chapters merge these two roles into a single post. Others maintain them as distinct positions with separate responsibilities. A structural counterintuitive worth noting. A senior chaplain may hold higher institutional standing within the specialist track than a captain holds in the combat chain, but in battle, the captain still commands. Chaplains are staff officers. The captain is the line officer. Both facts coexist. Chaplains are actively targeted by enemy commanders who understand what they represent. Remove the chaplain, and you've removed the voice that makes continued sacrifice feel meaningful to the Marines around him. Nurgle's servants have a particular philosophical interest in eliminating anyone whose entire existence argues that decay isn't the natural end of all things. The Dark Angels variant of this track stands apart from every other chapter in the Imperium. Any chaplain accepted into the Dark Angels' inner circle automatically becomes an interrogator chaplain, a rank unique to the Dark Angels and their successor chapters. Standard chaplain functions continue. One additional responsibility is added: hunt the fallen, the 1st Legion Space Marines who turned during the Horus Heresy, and when they're captured, break them, extract their confession, force their repentance. The route to becoming an interrogator chaplain is described in the lore as perilous. Not every chaplain is read into the inner circle, and those who aren't remain unaware of the full scope of what the chapter is actually doing. The most accomplished interrogator chaplain in Dark Angel's history, named Molochia, carries 12 black pearls on his rosarius, one for each fallen he has successfully brought to repentance. These are torture priests hunting traitors from 10,000 years ago, maintaining a secret the wider Imperium has never been told. executing a mission that has been running since the 31st millennium. The Black Templars maintain their chaplaincy with particular intensity, given their total prohibition on librarians and the weight this places on the chaplaincy to sustain their crusading doctrine. Space Marine librarians channel the power of the warp. Psyker ability is identified during the Aspirant and Neophyte phases, when it manifests under the stress of trials and transformation, and candidates are diverted from the standard battle company track into the Librarius for additional screening. The Black Templars refuse them entirely. Doctrinal prohibition, no exceptions. The chapter views psykers with sufficient theological suspicion that the Librarius simply does not exist within their institution. They have been fielding armies without a single librarian since the chapter's founding, and they have no plans to change this. The Space Wolves have a more complicated relationship with the concept. They maintain what functions as a Librarius, but won't call it that. Their specialists are rune priests, and rune priests explicitly deny being psykers. The power, they maintain, comes from the runes they carve and from the essence of Fenris itself. The wider Imperium, including the Grey Knights, considers them psykers regardless. The Space Wolves have held this doctrinal position for 10,000 years without resolution. Both claims may be simultaneously correct depending on what you mean by the word. For chapters that maintain a formal Librarius, the rank progression runs across 4 confirmed ascending grades. The Lexicanium is entry-level, assigned upon joining the Librarius after surviving rigorous psychic testing. At this stage, the Lexicanium handles administrative and archival functions within the Librarius while developing the control necessary for more demanding deployment. Psychic ability without control is a direct threat to everyone in the Lexicanium's immediate vicinity, including his own squad. The early emphasis on archive work isn't accidental. Above the Lexicanium is the Codicier, mid-rank, deployable across a broader range of battlefield roles, but not yet at the apex of operational capability. The Epistolary sits at the highest grade below the Chief Librarian. Epistolaries function primarily as battlefield psykers and psychic communication assets, transmitting and receiving across distances where conventional communications fail. In engagements where coordinating forces across an entire planetary surface matters, an epistolary relaying a captain's orders 20 kilometers through psychic transmission isn't performing a secondary function. He is the communication infrastructure. The Chief Librarian heads the Librarius and is the most powerful psyker in the chapter. In major engagements, Chief Librarians typically assist the chapter master directly rather than operating at company level, with an authority broadly equivalent to a senior officer operating above the company hierarchy. The progression is documented. A recruit who survives the initial testing joins the Librarius as a Lexicanium, rises through Codicier and Epistolary, and may eventually reach Chief Librarian. This latter was formalized in the 2nd edition of the tabletop game and has been part of the lore since. The death beat at Librarian tier is unique in the entire hierarchy. The perils of the warp are a specific and documented risk of channeling psychic power, catastrophic backlash that can produce demon possession, a psychic explosion lethal to everyone in the immediate area, or direct self-destruction. A Lexicanium has less control than an epistolary. A Chief Librarian channels at higher intensity than anyone below him. The power available at the top of this track is proportional to the risk at the top of this track. You survived 19 implants installed without anesthesia. You survived scout deployment with unfinished gene seed. You spent decades developing the ability to reshape reality with your mind, and the warp occasionally decides to take that back all at once. Tier 6. Company Officers, Champion, Ancient, Captain. The Company Champion is the finest duelist in a Space Marine company, appointed to defend the company's honor, challenge enemy champions to single combat, and protect the captain and specialist officers in the field. By almost every intuitive metric, this position should carry significant formal authority. The company champion is technically outside the chain of command and outranked by sergeants. An appointment based entirely on individual martial excellence, held by a veteran whose combat capability is unmatched within the company, carrying no formal authority over anyone in the command structure. He functions as second in command in some operational contexts based on practical necessity. His formal hierarchical position sits below an NCO. At the chapter level, the chapter champion serves the chapter master directly in the same capacity and faces the same structural reality. The company ancient carries the company's battle standard into the field, an appointment-based honor, not a command rank. Standards in the 41st millennium aren't decorative. They function as active battlefield rallying points, physical symbols of continued operational cohesion under fire. The captain commands a full company of roughly 100 Space Marines. Captains may additionally hold functional master titles: Master of the Fleet, Master of the Arsenal, Master of Recruits, Master of the Watch, Lord of the Household, Chief Victualler. These are administrative responsibilities held alongside company command. A Master of the Arsenal is still a captain with an additional portfolio. They aren't a rank tier above captain, and conflating them with one produces a false level in the hierarchy that many overviews insert without acknowledgement. Captains die in battles they win. The 41st millennium has no honorable discharge and no administrative posting sufficiently safe to constitute actual retirement. A captain directing a planetary assault against a Death Guard warband is managing an engagement where the most experienced enemy warriors have been decaying since the Horus Heresy, and consider this an unremarkable mourning. Nurgle's blessings don't adjust for the rank of whoever is standing in front of them. Tier 7. Honor Guard. The Honor Guard is the most counterintuitive structural position in the entire Space Marine hierarchy. Honor Guard are drawn from veterans of extreme and sustained distinction, Marines who have given, by the lore's phrasing, many Terran centuries of exceptionally courageous service and achieved every award and honor the chapter offers. They serve as the chapter master's personal elite cadre. They represent the absolute peak of what the chapter produces short of the chapter master himself. The Honor Guard can't order captains. They hold no formal authority over anyone below the chapter master. Captains will listen to them, ignoring the operational judgment of someone with centuries of decorated warfare is a specific kind of mistake no functional captain makes. But the chain of command does not run through the Honor Guard. They hold higher cultural esteem than the captain of the first company. The formal authority belongs to the captain. As the lore frames it directly, these individuals are separate from the chain of command and as such can't order captains. But captains will nonetheless listen to these venerable warriors. Accumulate enough individual distinction across enough centuries to represent the chapter's institutional memory in a single Marine, and a sergeant can technically issue you a direct order. The Ultramarines equivalent is the Victrix Guard. The White Scar's equivalent is the Brotherhood of the Kashyyyk, drawing on the Mongol Imperial Guard tradition, adapted through the steppe cavalry culture Jagatai Khan built the chapter around. Primaris chapters have addressed the absence of a formally designated Honor Guard unit through various formations of veteran intercessors serving in the chapter master's direct retinue, though the formal structure varies by chapter. Tier 8. Primaris Integration. Belisarius Cawl developed Primaris Marines under Rabute Guilliman's authorization across approximately 10,000 years of work conducted in concealment, then released them at the start of the Indomitus Crusade. Roughly 94% of existing Space Marine chapters accepted them. The Ultima founding simultaneously created approximately 1,000 entirely new Primaris-only chapters. Primaris Marines carry 3 additional gene seed implants beyond the standard 19 to 22 total, producing warriors who are physically larger, faster, and more durable than standard Astartes. Their gene seed is more stable. Their weapon systems, developed by Cawl across his multi-millennium project, include equipment unavailable to firstborn Marines. The critical structural point. Intercessors, hellblasters, inceptors, aggressors, infiltrators, suppressors, reavers, eliminators, eradicators, incursors. These are unit types. Squad roles. The same category error that produces Tactical Marine is a rank above Assault Marine produces Hellblaster is a rank above Intercessor. Both errors misread role assignments as promotion steps. The unit type designations in the Primaris era are no more ranks than their firstborn equivalents were. Primaris Marines integrate directly into the existing company structure. A Primaris battle brother reports to the same sergeant, lieutenant, and captain as his firstborn counterpart. All 4 specialist tracks have Primaris equivalents: Primaris Chaplain, Primaris Librarian, Primaris Apothecary, Primaris Tech Marine, functioning identically within their respective parallel tracks. A chapter can operate a mixed firstborn and Primaris hierarchy without structural contradiction, or field entirely Primaris companies under the same command framework. The lieutenant's reformalization is the most significant rank structure addition the Primaris era produced. 2 lieutenants per company, explicitly defined as demi-company commanders, filling a command gap that several Codex editions had left open. The rank existed in Space Marine Legion structure during the Great Crusade. It appears in Horus Heresy era lore with clear grounding, but was largely absent from formalized company hierarchy across multiple subsequent editions before the 8th edition launch reintroduced it as a standard company officer. The Dark Imperium starter set packaged 2 Primaris lieutenants explicitly. Whether this recovered a dormant rank or represented a genuine structural addition is unresolved, but the functional result is the same. The Rubicon Primaris. The process by which a firstborn Marine undergoes additional surgery to become Primaris carries significant mortality. Those who survive emerge enhanced, and that is the relevant scope of it here. Special, the Dark Angels and the Deathwing. The Dark Angels maintain a structure that the Codex Astartes can't fully contain. Standard Dark Angels, those in the regular battle companies, what the chapter internally calls the Green Company, follow Codex organization broadly. Captains command companies, sergeants lead squads. Specialist tracks run parallel to the combat chain. This is what the chapter presents to the wider Imperium. The divergence begins when a Dark Angel is deemed worthy of admission to deeper knowledge. The first revelation, during the Horus Heresy, a portion of the original First Legion turned to chaos. The sons of Lion L. Johnson, formerly among the most loyal of the Loyalist legions, fractured. The chapter has been concealing this for roughly 10,000 years. The Imperium at large does not know. The entire purpose of the Dark Angel's internal hierarchy, beneath the Codex-compliant exterior, is shaped by that concealment and the hunt it requires. The chapter maintains a parallel secret hierarchy called the Inner Circle, structured around progressively deeper levels of revelation. As a Dark Angel advances and proves himself, he may be invited further in. Rank in the external chapter structure does not automatically translate to Inner Circle membership. A captain with centuries of service may know considerably less about what the chapter is actually doing than a Deathwing sergeant who was read in a decade ago. The Deathwing is the chapter's first company, and where other chapters field first companies as veteran formations, the Dark Angel's first company consists almost entirely of Terminators. The Deathwing's purpose isn't simply to field the chapter's heaviest infantry. The first company exists in significant part to hunt the fallen, tracking traitors from 10 millennia ago across a galaxy-wide pursuit that has never been officially acknowledged. Within the Deathwing Knights represent the elite, Inner Circle warriors in tactical dreadnought armor with specialized close combat weapons, among the most lethal individual combatants the Adeptus Astartes produces. The Grand Master of the Deathwing commands the entire First Company. Belial holds this position in canonical lore, commanding not just the chapter's finest warriors, but the operational core of a 10,000-year secret mission. The Raven Wing is the chapter's second company, entirely mounted on bikes and fast vehicles. Its function is to hunt, identify, and locate the fallen ahead of the Deathwing's closure. A Raven-Wing sergeant pursuing a target across a continent and a Deathwing Terminator dropping in to complete the capture are executing the same mission from opposite ends of the operational sequence. The two companies work in tandem across engagements the rest of the chapter might misread as straightforward combat operations. At the chapter's apex, the Supreme Grand Master commands overall. Dark Angels Grand Masters, senior officers at chapter level, use that specific title, distinct from the chapter master equivalents in other chapters. None of this external rank structure tells you where a given Dark Angel sits in the inner circle. Those are two separate ladders. The irony at this tier requires no exaggeration. A Grand Master of the Deathwing, carrying the full weight of 10,000 years of institutional knowledge, commanding the most capable warriors in the chapter on a mission the Imperium doesn't know exists, can still encounter a Plague Marine whose body has been optimized for entropy by the patron god of everything the Dark Angels claim to be holding the line against. The Inner Circle knows more about the Fallen than anyone outside the chapter. Nurgle's Rot knows one thing: everything decays eventually. At the apex of the sequential combat hierarchy sits the Chapter Master, commanding an entire chapter of roughly 1,000 Space Marines. The formal designation is typically Master of, followed by the chapter name, Master of the Ultramarines, Master of the Dark Angels. This is the Chapter Master's formal title, not a distinct rank above Chapter Master. Some chapters don't maintain a Chapter Master at all. The Iron Hands use alternative governance structures reflecting their particular relationship with the Omnissiah and their cultural attitude toward the weakness of flesh. The Space Wolves call theirs the Great Wolf. The Dark Angels, at this level, call theirs the Supreme Grand Master. Both titles carry the specific additional weight of what those chapters are. The Great Wolf of a chapter that organized itself around Fenrisian tribal leadership. The Supreme Grand Master of a chapter whose real hierarchy operates beneath the one everyone can see. A chapter master commands forces capable of superseding normal imperial authority within their area of operations, has centuries of personal battlefield experience, and is individually among the most capable warriors humanity has produced in 10,000 years of continuous war. The Imperium has no retirement structure for Space Marines. Every Marine who has ever served has died in service or is still active. Chapter Masters have led their chapters to decisive victories in impossible engagements and not returned from the battlefield where those victories took place. Entire chapters have been destroyed, not mauled, not reduced, destroyed, and the Imperium has raised successors and continued. There is no terminal rank. There is no final promotion that removes you from danger. There is only the current battle and the next one, running in sequence until one of them doesn't end the way the last one did. The math. The 12 humans debate. The claim that a Space Marine is worth 12 Imperial Guard soldiers in combat effectiveness circulates widely in the lore community as a foundational metric. Its honest status? No primary codex or confirmed novel source has been found containing this exact numerical ratio. The figure persists as a round number summary of something real, that Space Marines operate at a scale of individual combat effectiveness with no direct baseline human equivalent. But the specific 12-to-1 ratio is community shorthand rather than a documented calculation. What is documented? The total Adeptus Astartes across all chapters numbers in the low hundreds of thousands. The Imperium of Man contains trillions of human beings. The entire Space Marine population represents a fraction of the military force the Imperium fields on any given day, concentrated into fewer than 1,000 chapters of roughly 1,000 Marines each. By raw headcount, Space Marines are a rounding error in Imperial logistics. The argument for the math making sense. Space Marines hold lines where conventional forces collapse. They take objectives that no other Imperial asset can reach. They execute targeted interventions that determine the outcome of campaigns, while the Guard absorbs the attrition. However many children die to produce one battle brother, the calculus is justified by what he prevents. The argument against: the production rate is too slow to sustain attrition warfare. A chapter that loses 50 Marines to a campaign takes years to replace them through the full transformation process. Space Marines can't scale to solve the Imperium's military problems broadly. They're a scalpel applied to the problems that nothing else can address. And the Imperium bleeds more people to administrative and logistical failures in a single sector than the entire Adeptus Astartes represents in total headcount. Running a process that kills hundreds of children to produce one warrior who will then be deployed against threats specifically calibrated to kill Space Marines is either the most rational investment the Imperium makes or its most elegant self-deception. Both positions are correct. They're answering different versions of the question. Drop your answer in the comments. Walk it back from the beginning. A child, somewhere between 7 and 16 years old, pulled from a death world or a warrior culture or a frontier settlement. He survives trials calibrated to kill the majority of everyone who attempts them. His body is rebuilt over years by 22 surgical implants without anesthetic. He deploys into active combat before the transformation is finished. He survives that too. If he makes it through scout deployment, through the gene seed integration, through the first years as a battle brother, he begins climbing a hierarchy that runs from sergeant through lieutenant to captain, with parallel paths available through the chaplaincy's 4-tier structure, from justiciar to master of sanctity, the Librarius's 4-tier psyker ladder, from lexicanium to chief librarian, or the specialist tracks of apothecary and tech marine. He might spend decades as a veteran sergeant carrying more operational influence than his formal rank suggests. He might be appointed company champion and find that centuries of individual martial excellence have bought him no formal authority over anyone in the command structure. He might reach the honor guard and discover that the highest prestige in the chapter comes packaged with no power to issue an order to the captain standing next to him. He might become Grand Master of the Death Wing, commanding the finest warriors in the chapter on a mission that has been running for 10 millennia, in service of a secret the rest of the Imperium doesn't know exists. He might reach Chapter Master and command 1,000 of the finest soldiers humanity has ever produced, from a position with no exit. He will die in service. Every single one of them does. The question is only whether it happens at the first tier, a trial gone wrong, a rejection episode, the wrong child in the wrong environment on the wrong day, or at the 12th, to a Plague Marine's blessed rot that bypasses everything the Emperor promised it wouldn't. The Death Guard were the 14th Legion, originally called the Dusk Raiders, one of the finest fighting forces the Great Crusade produced. When their fleet was marooned in the warp during the Horus Heresy, and a mysterious contagion began spreading from ship to ship, a plague that rotted their transhuman bodies alive from the inside, that infected the mechanisms of their vessels as easily as the warriors within, their Primarch Mortarion called out in delirium to whatever would answer. Nurgle answered. The plague stopped. The Death Guard became the plague, permanently. Their bodies, still sealed inside power armor, filled with disease, corruption, and decay. They don't bleed. They don't feel pain. They have been walking across the galaxy for 10,000 years, spreading Nurgle's gifts to everything they encounter. The Emperor stated, in recorded lore, that his Space Marines would be untouched by plague or disease. Nurgle's rot operates simultaneously as a physiological affliction and a warp-based corruption. The metaphysical dimension of it does not interact with biological filtration systems. The Emperor's guarantee was biological. Nurgle's answer wasn't biological. All that horror, all those ranks, all that ceramite, just to die on your first deployment. Was it worth it? The Imperium has been running this calculation since the second founding and hasn't stopped. One side says the process is insane. Children dying by the hundreds so that one Marine can go die in ceramite somewhat later, against enemies who have been doing this since before the chapter was founded. The other side says the Imperium does worse things before it distributes the morning ration packs, and at least the Space Marines are what's standing between humanity and everything that wants to end it. Neither side is wrong. They're answering different versions of the same question. That's what the comments section is for. Subscribe for more stories like this.